I can still feel that night, the warmth of the lights, the soft hum of music, the way everyone kept saying how beautiful we looked together. My cheeks ached from smiling, but my heart felt lighter than air. I had just married the man I thought would love me for the rest of my life. Adam held my hand tightly as we greeted guests, his thumb brushing against my skin like a quiet promise. Everything felt perfect. The hall was glowing with laughter, our friends dancing, my mother wiping tears of joy. When he leaned close and whispered, "I'll be right back, just need to check something," I didn't think much of it. Why would I? He was my husband now. I watched him walk away, his black suit catching the golden light, his smile lingering for just a second before he disappeared through the door. I didn't know it then, but that moment, that simple moment, would be the beginning of a night I'd never forget. Because hours later, I would still be waiting, still wearing the same smile that had started to fade, still wondering why the man who promised forever never came back that night. At first, it didn't feel strange at all. Adam was always the kind of man who liked to handle things himself, even the smallest details. So when he said he'd be right back, I smiled and nodded, too wrapped up in the glow of the night to question it. The band had just started playing our song, a slow tune that always made me tear up. I remember looking toward the door, expecting him to walk back in, smiling that tired but loving smile he wore whenever he looked at me. But minutes passed and he didn't. Guests were still laughing, taking pictures, dancing. My sister came over, holding 2 glasses of juice, and asked, "Where's the groom?" Her tone was light, teasing. I laughed too, maybe a little too loudly. "He'll be back," I said, pretending I wasn't already checking my phone under the tablecloth. 10 minutes. Then 20. I called him once. It rang twice, and then stopped. Maybe he was talking to someone, I told myself. Maybe his phone died. Maybe he's fixing something. There were too many maybes, and none of them eased the unease that was slowly curling in my stomach. A waiter came to clear the plates, and I asked him if he'd seen Adam. He shook his head politely.
"No, ma'am."
"Maybe outside," he said, avoiding my eyes the way people do when they sense something they shouldn't say. The laughter around me started to sound distant. I could see the fairy lights flickering above, but they didn't feel warm anymore. My friends were still chatting, unaware, while I sat there in my wedding dress, a bride with no groom beside her. An hour passed. The hall began to empty. The DJ switched to softer songs. People were starting to leave. Every goodbye felt heavier. "Don't worry, maybe he's helping with something," one of my cousins said. I smiled and nodded again. I'd become good at pretending in those few minutes. When my phone buzzed, my heart leapt. But it was just a message from a friend saying, "You looked stunning tonight." I stared at the screen, the words blurring as tears started to form. I tried to distract myself. I fixed the edge of my dupatta, retouched my lipstick, checked my reflection. But the girl staring back at me didn't look like a new bride anymore. She looked lost. At around midnight, I walked out to the terrace where we had taken our first photos as husband and wife just hours before. The night air was cool, but it couldn't calm the burning inside me. I called him again. This time his phone was off. The silence of that moment is something I'll never forget. The sound of my own breath, the distant echo of laughter fading from the hall, and somewhere deep inside, the first crack in my heart, the quiet realization that something was terribly wrong. That was the beginning of my wait. And I didn't know then that it would change everything. It was close to midnight when my phone finally lit up. The sudden vibration startled me. I dropped the glass of water I was holding. My heart started pounding so fast it almost drowned out the music still playing faintly from the hall below.
"Adam."
His name glowed on the screen, and for a second, I actually laughed out loud, half in relief, half in exhaustion. Finally, I whispered to myself. My fingers shook as I picked up the call. "Adam, where are you?" I said quickly, my voice breaking. I didn't even let him speak first. "I've been waiting. Everyone's gone home. But the voice that came through wasn't his. It was a woman.
Soft. Calm.
Almost emotionless. "He's with me," she said. For a moment, I thought I misheard her. I froze, pressing the phone harder to my ear. I'm sorry, who is this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The woman sighed quietly, like she pitied me. You shouldn't call again, she said. He made his choice. And before I could respond, the line went dead. I stood there, staring at my reflection in the mirror, a bride in a white dress, phone still clutched to her ear, eyes wide with disbelief. I called back instantly. The number was unreachable. I tried again and again until my hands went numb. No answer. It felt like the air had left the room. My throat tightened and tears burned the back of my eyes. I didn't even realize I had dropped to the floor until I felt the cold tiles under my knees. Was it a prank? A mistake? Or had I just heard the truth no wife ever wants to hear? I tried to convince myself there had to be some explanation. Maybe someone stole his phone. Maybe it was some twisted joke. But deep down, something inside me already knew. That woman's voice, it wasn't random. There was something personal in her tone, something familiar, as if she knew who I was. I called his best friend, Daniel, desperate for answers. He sounded half asleep, confused. He told me he was heading home, he said.
Why?
Is everything okay? I didn't even know how to answer. How could I explain that on my wedding night, another woman had just told me he's with me? I hung up without replying. I just sat there on the bed, my veil slipping off my shoulder, the room spinning slowly around me. The decorations that had looked magical hours ago now felt cruel, reminders of a promise already breaking. I remember whispering into the silence, "Please, God, tell me this isn't real." But reality didn't care. It just sat beside me quietly, watching me tremble as my phone screen went black again. And that's when I realized, sometimes, betrayal doesn't start with what you see. It starts with what you hear. After the call, everything felt unreal, like I had stepped out of my own life and into someone else's nightmare. The music from the hall had stopped completely now. The laughter, the lights, the crowd, all gone. Just silence, and me, in a white dress that suddenly felt too heavy to breathe in. I picked up my phone again and dialed his number for what must have been the 20th time. Still switched off. I stared at the glowing wallpaper of our wedding photo, the one we'd taken that morning, smiling, unaware of the storm that was waiting for us. I wiped my tears, trying to steady myself. He wouldn't do this, I told myself. Not Adam. He loves me. I clung to that belief like it was the last thing keeping me from falling apart. The hotel suite they'd prepared for us was quiet when I entered. The soft candlelight flickered against the walls, and rose petals were scattered across the bed, the same bed where I'd imagined we'd talk all night about our future, about our dreams, about everything we had waited for. But there was no laughter.
No footsteps. No Adam.
I sat on the edge of the bed, still holding my phone, when I heard it, the faintest sound from the balcony. It was so soft that, at first, I thought I imagined it. A whisper, almost like someone breathing my husband's name.
Adam.
My heart froze. Every muscle in my body went stiff. I turned toward the balcony doors, which were slightly open. The night air slipped through, cool and sharp. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to move closer. Hello. My voice came out shaky. Is someone there? No answer. Just the wind. I stepped outside. The city lights shimmered far below. The air smelled like rain. I looked around, nothing. Empty chairs, the faint echo of cars in the distance. But the feeling that I wasn't alone wouldn't leave me. I stood there for a long moment, hugging my arms around myself. My own heartbeat sounded too loud. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Maybe that woman's voice had sunk so deep into my thoughts that now I was hearing things. But when I went back inside, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. The curtain near the balcony was moving, as if someone had touched it. And on the small glass table by the window lay a phone charger. Not mine. Not the hotel's. It was Adam's. I picked it up, holding it in my shaking hands. The last sign that he had been here, before leaving me behind. I sat down on the bed again, clutching that charger like it was the only proof that our marriage had been real. The silence grew heavier around me, pressing against my chest until tears finally spilled over. That night, I didn't sleep. I just listened to the ticking clock, to the wind whispering through the balcony door, and to the echo of that one word I couldn't get out of my head. He's with me. The first rays of morning crept into the room through the half-drawn curtains. I hadn't slept a single minute. My makeup had faded, my eyes were swollen, and my wedding dress still clung to me like a memory I couldn't escape from. The bed beside me remained untouched. His side, cold, empty, perfectly made. It was almost cruel how neat it looked, as if mocking me for waiting all night for someone who was never coming back. I got up slowly, my legs weak, my mind still replaying the night before. The sound, the woman's voice on the phone, the charger left behind. I kept telling myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe an emergency. Maybe something went wrong. Because how could a man who looked me in the eyes, vowed to love me forever, just disappear hours later? I walked to the mirror. The reflection that stared back at me was unrecognizable, a bride who'd become a stranger overnight. My veil was torn, my lipstick smudged, and the glow I'd carried all day had been replaced by a hollow ache in my chest. A knock at the door startled me. My heart leapt, hoping, praying it was him. But it was only the hotel staff, bringing breakfast and an envelope addressed to me. "Ma'am, this was left downstairs at the reception," the woman said gently, avoiding my eyes. My hands trembled as I took it. The handwriting was his. I shut the door behind me and sat on the edge of the bed before tearing it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once.
I'm sorry, Anna.
Please don't hate me. I didn't know how to tell you before. I thought I could move on, start over, but I can't live a lie, not with you. There's someone else.
She didn't mean to call you.
She just couldn't stay silent anymore. I never wanted you to find out this way. You deserved better than this.
Adam.
The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. My fingers went numb. For a long time, I couldn't breathe, couldn't cry, couldn't even move. The man I loved, the one I trusted with my whole heart, had betrayed me before our marriage even began. I sat there for hours, holding that letter against my chest, rocking back and forth like a child trying to comfort herself. The silence of the suite felt heavier now, not empty, but cruel. By noon, the phone started ringing again. Messages from family, friends, photographers, everyone asking where we were, when we'd come down for breakfast, when we'd check out. I didn't answer a single one. I finally stood, still clutching his note, and walked toward the balcony. The sun was high now, the world bright and alive, so unaware of the darkness that had just swallowed mine. Somewhere out there, he was with her. And I was here, a bride without a husband, a story without an ending. That was the morning I stopped believing in forever. Days passed, but time didn't move for me. I was living in the same moment the night he left, the morning I read his note. Every corner of that room held a memory I didn't want anymore. His scent lingered on the pillow, his laughter echoed faintly in my mind, and every time my phone buzzed, my heart still hoped it was him, calling to say it was all a mistake. But he never did. When I finally returned to my parents' house, the silence of their living room felt different. My mother's eyes were full of questions she was too afraid to ask. My father couldn't even look at me without his hands trembling. I could see the pain in their faces, not just for me, but for the shame, the whispers they knew would follow. For a few days, I avoided everyone. I shut my phone off, closed my door, and cried until my body couldn't anymore. But the ache wouldn't leave. I needed answers. I needed to know why. One afternoon, my cousin Sarah came to see me. She hesitated before speaking, her eyes filled with guilt. "Anna," she said softly, "there's something I think you should see." She handed me her phone. On the screen was a photo, taken 2 weeks before my wedding. Adam was there, with a woman I had never seen before. They were standing too close, smiling in that quiet, secret way two people do when they share something real. My breath caught in my throat. "Who is she?" I whispered. Sarah looked away. "Her name is Lila. She worked with him. They were together for almost a year. They broke up when he got engaged to you, but she paused. I think it never really ended. The room started spinning. I sat down, gripping the edge of the bed, trying to make sense of it all. A year? That meant he was with her the entire time we were planning our wedding. The same months he was promising me love, building dreams, choosing colors and vows. I felt sick. Later that night, I found her number saved in an old group chat. She had been part of one of Adam's office projects. I don't even know why I did it, but I called her. She answered after 2 rings.
Her voice was calm.
Almost too calm. I was expecting your call, she said. There was silence, heavy and sharp, before I finally asked, why did you do this? Why ruin my life? She sighed. Anna, I didn't ruin it.
He did.
He told me he loved me, but he said his family wanted him to marry you. I didn't want to believe he'd actually go through with it. But when he did, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Her words broke me in a way even his letter hadn't. Because now I realized, he hadn't just left me.
He had used me.
Lied to me. Lied to both of us. That night, I didn't cry. I just sat there in the dark, feeling something colder than heartbreak. It was the truth, and it finally set in. It took me a week to find the courage to see him again. 7 days of sleepless nights. 7 mornings waking up with the same thought. Why wasn't I enough? By the 8th day, the sadness had burned itself into something else. Not anger exactly, but a quiet strength. I was done being the broken bride everyone pitied. I wanted answers. Not from rumors, not from letters, but from him. I found out from one of his friends that he had gone back to his apartment in the city. The same apartment we were supposed to move into after the wedding. My heart pounded as I stood in front of that door, the same place where we'd once shared coffee, laughter, and dreams that now felt like lies. I knocked once. No answer. Then again. Finally, the door opened, and there he was. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He looked nothing like the man I had married just days ago. His eyes were hollow, his face tired. The guilt was written all over him. Anna, he whispered, you shouldn't be here. I swallowed hard. You're right. I shouldn't. But you owe me the truth. He stepped aside, letting me in. The apartment was a mess, clothes scattered, half-empty bottles on the table, and silence thick enough to choke on. I stood near the window, gripping my hands together to stop them from shaking. Why did you do it, Adam? My voice cracked. Why did you marry me if you love someone else? He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my eyes. I thought I could let her go, he said quietly. My parents wanted us together. They said you were perfect for me, and I wanted to believe it. I thought I could start over. I let out a small, bitter laugh. Start over? By lying to me? By ruining 2 lives at once? He didn't answer. He just stared at the floor like a man who had already destroyed everything that mattered. Was she worth it? I asked finally. Was breaking me worth it? He looked up then, eyes red, voice trembling.
No, he said.
You were. You still are. I wasn't brave enough to tell the truth. For the first time since that night, I felt something shift inside me. Pity, maybe. But not for him, for the woman I used to be. The one who believed his promises without question. I took a deep breath and stepped closer. You don't get to say that anymore, I told him softly. You don't get to call me yours. Not after what you did. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. My tears were gone now, replaced by calm certainty. This isn't love, Adam, I said. It's a wound, and I'm done bleeding for it. Then I turned around and walked out. For the first time since my wedding night, I didn't look back. When I walked out of his apartment that day, something inside me changed. It wasn't sudden, like a switch being flipped. It was quiet, like the slow fading of pain after a long cry. For the first time in weeks, I felt empty, but in a peaceful way. The kind of emptiness that comes when there's nothing left to lose. The world outside looked different. The same streets that once reminded me of us now felt like mine again. The air tasted new. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew it had to be forward, anywhere that wasn't the past. The first few days were the hardest. Nights were still cruel. I'd wake up expecting to hear his voice, only to face the silence that had become my new companion. I'd replay every memory, every smile, every lie, wondering how I missed the signs. But slowly, day by day, the memories began to lose their power. I started journaling. Every night, I poured out my heart onto paper. The pain, the confusion, the questions I never got answers to. And with every word, I felt a little lighter. My diary became my therapist, my friend, my silent witness. My mother would quietly leave tea outside my room every morning. She never asked what I wrote, but her presence reminded me I wasn't alone. One evening, she came in, sat beside me, and said softly, "Sometimes, God breaks our hearts to save our souls." Those words stayed with me. I started going out again, small steps. A walk to the park. A coffee alone. Watching sunsets without waiting for someone to hold my hand. It wasn't easy, but each moment felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Then one day, I passed by a bridal store, the same one where I had once picked my wedding dress. For a second, my chest tightened, but I didn't cry. Instead, I smiled, not out of joy, but acceptance. That chapter was over. Healing didn't come in grand gestures. It came in quiet moments, in laughter that returned unexpectedly, in songs that no longer hurt, in mornings when I finally looked at my reflection and saw me again, not the broken bride I once was. I realized that love, when real, never demands you lose yourself to keep it. What Adam gave me wasn't love, it was a lesson. A painful, necessary one. And though the scars remained, they no longer defined me. They reminded me that I had survived. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I closed my diary and whispered to myself, "You made it through." For the first time, I believed it. That night, I slept peacefully, not because I had forgotten, but because I had forgiven. Not him, but myself. It's strange how life moves on, how the same world that once felt heavy with heartbreak can suddenly feel light again. Months have passed since that night. The wedding dress that once hung in my closet like a ghost of what could have been is now neatly folded away in a box. I don't hate it anymore. It's just a piece of fabric, a reminder of a life I outgrew. Some mornings, I still wake up with a dull ache in my chest. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to live with the memory without letting it control you. And that's what I'm doing, one sunrise at a time. I found a new job at a small publishing company. The first day I walked into that office, I felt nervous, like a child learning to stand again. But work became my escape, my purpose. The smell of fresh ink, the sound of typing keys, the quiet buzz of creativity, it made me feel alive again. And then there were people, kind faces who didn't know my story, who saw me not as the bride who was left, but simply as Anna. For the first time in a long while, I was just me again, not someone's wife, not someone's heartbreak, just a woman rebuilding her world. One afternoon, while organizing manuscripts, I met Ethan, a quiet editor with kind eyes and a patient smile. He never asked about my past, never pushed. He simply listened. Over time, our coffee breaks turned into long conversations about books, music, and dreams we hadn't dared to chase. He never made grand promises, never used the word forever. He just showed up, consistently, gently, honestly. One day, as we walked out of the office, he said something that stayed with me. "Sometimes, the people who hurt us aren't meant to destroy us," he said softly. "They're meant to push us toward the ones who can love us right." I smiled, not because I was in love, but because I finally understood love wasn't about perfection or promises.
It was about peace.
And, for the first time, I felt it. I still visit the seaside sometimes, the same place Adam and I once dreamed of honeymooning. But now I go alone. I watch the waves crash, the sun dip below the horizon, and I whisper a silent thank you, not to him, but to the version of me who survived it all. The pain didn't destroy me. It shaped me. And as I stand there, with the wind in my hair and my heart finally steady, I realize this. Endings aren't always tragedies. Sometimes they're quiet beginnings in disguise. That night, I went home, lit a candle, and wrote in my journal for the last time. Once, he left me alone on our wedding night. But now I stand alone, not broken, not waiting. Just free. And that was my new beginning. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Your support means everything. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were in her place?